Have you wondered why black people living in white people's nations are often poor? Black people can never become rich if they are living in a white people's nation. Before you react to this, let us tell you how. The system is designed in a way that won't let you get rich. Only a few people could escape the matrix, but most would remain in this cycle of poverty. But this is not something that has started happening in recent years. It has been happening for centuries. White people never missed a chance to steal black people's money and to keep them poor. They did everything. But will this ever end? Let's find out.
The Black History Archives.
The history of black people in the United States is a story written with resilience, struggle, and triumph. From the harrowing journey of capture and enslavement to the liberating echoes of the Emancipation Act, the black community has weathered storms that would break the spirit of many. However, despite overcoming tremendous odds, the echoes of discrimination, inequality, and deliberate sabotage persist through the generations. Apart from all other things, what made the black community weak back in time was the efforts never to let them grow rich. And some parts of this effort persist. But how did white people manage to keep black people poor? In the wake of freedom from slavery, hope soared high for African Americans, envisioning a life unshackled from oppression. However, the post-emancipation era witnessed the rise of Jim Crow laws and segregation, ending the promise of liberty. This ominous shadow transformed the ideal of equality into a daunting challenge for black Americans. The aftermath of emancipation brought forth a harsh reality: the persistence of the black-white wealth gap. Despite the chains of slavery being shattered, economic bonds continued to bind the aspirations of African Americans. The road to financial stability and prosperity proved to be a brutal battle, with systemic barriers blocking the path to economic empowerment. Basic needs, fundamental for a dignified life, became a battleground for black Americans striving to secure their place in society. Access to quality education, a cornerstone for progress, faced obstacles rooted in discriminatory practices. The promise of equal opportunities was crushed under the weight of prejudice, leaving many African Americans fighting with limited access to resources that could uplift their communities. Housing, a symbol of stability and progress, became a place where discrimination persisted. Segregation confined black families to neighborhoods marked by neglect and inadequate resources. The dream of home ownership, a real manifestation of freedom, was often obstructed by discriminatory lending practices, continuing the cycle of inequality. How did leaders play their part in this? How many times have they failed to help even when they could? Here's a reminder to please support us so we can make more videos for you by subscribing to our channel and giving the video a like. We want to build a strong community and we need your support. Let's continue now. Throughout history, the United States encountered key moments that could have served as opportunities to rectify the profound wrongs of slavery through reparations. One such crucial moment unfolded after the Civil War when General Sherman took a significant step by signing Field Order 15. This groundbreaking order aimed to allocate 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land to black families, envisioning a path toward economic empowerment. However, the promise of reparations was tragically quashed when President Andrew Johnson reversed this order, reinstating the land to former slave owners and perpetuating a cycle of disempowerment for black individuals. General Sherman's Field Order 15 marked a cheerful moment at that time, recognizing the need for tangible reparations to redress the historical wrongs inflicted upon black communities. The allocation of land was not merely a symbolic gesture, but a substantive attempt to provide black families with the means to build a foundation for economic independence and prosperity. However, this moment of promise was short-lived because of President Andrew Johnson's actions, which betrayed the aspirations of equality and reparations. What policies were made that ignored the black people? The GI Bill and Social Security, pivotal components of the New Deal legislation, were intended to be cornerstones of social and economic reform. However, these policies fell short of addressing racial wrongs, and instead, they inadvertently perpetuated and exacerbated systemic injustices. Racial housing covenants and redlining emerged as barriers that prevented black Americans from fully getting the benefits of these federal programs, hindering their opportunities to build wealth and perpetuating the racial wealth gap. The GI Bill, a landmark legislation designed to provide returning veterans with educational opportunities, home loans, and other benefits, was intended to catalyze post-war prosperity. However, the promise of equal access was marred by the reality of racial discrimination. Racial housing covenants, which were contractual agreements restricting the sale of property to specific racial or ethnic groups, limited the housing options available to Black veterans. This discriminatory practice effectively excluded them from utilizing the homeownership benefits offered by the GI Bill, hindering their ability to accumulate intergenerational wealth. Similarly, redlining, a discriminatory practice by which certain neighborhoods were marked as high risk for investment based on the racial composition of their residents, further marginalized Black Americans seeking to benefit from federal programs. The consequences of redlining were far-reaching, as it restricted access to loans and financial resources, particularly for Black families residing in these designated areas. This discriminatory practice effectively nullified the economic empowerment the GI Bill sought to provide. And does this still exist in the present day? The struggle for wealth accumulation among Black Americans is not merely a historical artifact. It is an ongoing battle against systemic biases. Job opportunities, though seemingly abundant, often come with the baggage of racial discrimination. The wage gap persists, with Black individuals earning less than their white counterparts for the same work. This economic disparity contributes to the widening chasm in wealth, hindering the realization of true freedom for African Americans. The promise of freedom post-emancipation also encountered challenges in the criminal justice system. The disproportionate targeting and detention of Black individuals perpetuated a cycle of weakness. The impact of mass detention on Black communities persists through generations, undermining the promise of a society where justice is blind and equal for all. Healthcare, a fundamental right, became another arena where the promise of freedom faced contamination. African Americans, burdened by historical injustices, encountered disparities in healthcare access and quality. The systemic neglect of Black health concerns further compounded the challenges faced by the community in achieving holistic well-being. And what is the reality of Black land ownership today? The shocking reality of Black land ownership today grows as a stark narrative of loss and dispossession. In the 20th century, African Americans proudly owned at least 14 million acres of land. Fast forward to the 21st century, and a staggering 90% of this land has been brutally stripped away from them. The current landscape reveals that African Americans now possess a mere 1.1 million acres of farmland. The methods employed to perpetrate this systematic land theft are as insidious as the scale of the loss. Here's property, tax sales, and the implementation of the Torrance Act stand as sinister tools in this grand scheme to dispossess Black individuals of their rightful land. These methods, seemingly bureaucratic on the surface, have devastating consequences, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of Black land ownership. Here's property, a seemingly innocuous legal term, has become a means of fracturing and diluting Black land ownership. The complexities of inheritance laws often result in shared ownership among family members, opening the door for external forces to exploit these divisions. Corrupt leaders exploit legal loopholes, leading to the forced sale of land, further diminishing the already dwindling Black-owned acreage. Tax sales, clearly a mechanism to ensure revenue for local governments, have converted into a tool of dispossession disproportionately affecting African American landowners. Property tax regulations often trap vulnerable landowners, pushing them into a cycle of debt and eventual loss of their cherished land. What begins as a financial struggle transforms into a devastating loss, contributing to the alarming decline in Black land ownership. The Torrance Act, introduced with the purported intention of simplifying land transactions, has, in reality, exacerbated the crisis of Black land ownership. This act, praised for its efficiency, creates an environment where the true owners of the land are concealed. The lack of transparency becomes a breeding ground for exploitation, with corrupt entities manipulating the system to turn control away from African American landowners. The impact of this calculated land dispossession extends far beyond the numbers. It strikes at the heart of economic empowerment within the Black community. Now comes another aspect where efforts are made to keep Black people poor: The job market, a pivotal place for wealth building, poses distinctive challenges for Black individuals, particularly those with names that resonate with their racial identity. Studies highlight a disheartening reality. Applicants with Black-sounding names experience a staggering 10% fewer callbacks across the board. Discrimination within the employment application process emerges as a formidable barrier, casting a shadow over the wealth-building aspirations of Black individuals. The difference in callback rates based on the perceived ethnicity of names exposes an underlying bias that affects the job market. Black individuals, even before they step into an interview room, confront a biasedness that disadvantages them from the outset. The weight of discrimination in the initial stages of job application creates a pervasive obstacle, hindering their ability to secure meaningful employment opportunities. The job market, meant to be a platform for meritocracy, caves to biases that damage the principles of equal opportunity. Black individuals find themselves caught in a cycle where their names become a hindrance to accessing the same opportunities afforded to their counterparts with ethnically neutral names. This discriminatory practice not only affects individuals but has broader implications for the collective economic well-being of the Black community. Denied equal access to employment opportunities, Black individuals encounter barriers to career advancement and financial stability. The repercussions are felt in the persistent wage gap and limited avenues for upward mobility, reinforcing a cycle of economic disadvantage. Do you think the Black people can ever be rich? How do you think it will be possible to end this? Should the state step in to protect Black people's interests? What efforts need to be made? Let us know in the comments section. Do you see Black people ever getting the same opportunities as white people? Would you like us to make more videos? If yes, please support us by subscribing to the Black History Archives and clicking the bell icon. You can check out more videos on our channel too.